We all expected ramifications in the UAE based on this economic crisis, a bit of a repeat of 2008, 2009, but possibly even worse. And that's what I'm seeing now when I'm told by a British couple who are in extreme distress over Emirates Airlines' failure to pay them end of service benefits. Now, the wife of a pilot has contacted me, and she is so extremely stressed about facing homelessness next month. Now, these are people, this is a couple who have lived in the UAE for 10 years, and the husband is an Emirates Airlines pilot. Now, he was owed his end of service leave and payments amounting to around 800,000 dirhams. But they haven't paid, and they haven't paid in 7 months. Finally, they sent 25,000 dirhams to the couple's bank account, but marked it as end of service. And the banks in the Emirates automatically close down, freeze accounts when it's the final payment. That's just their automatic protocol. So they were locked out of their accounts. They had a small loan of about 30,000 dirhams, and now they're defaulting on that because Emirates Airlines just haven't paid them. Now, these are professional people, obviously an airline pilot on a fairly good wage, no doubt, and then to have Emirates Airlines, a huge company who... I think we've got some bad connection, but to have Emirates Airlines default on payments of up to 800,000 dirhams for their airline captains, it's just unacceptable. This is a company that can afford to pay its staff. There's no reason to delay payments for 7 months. This is forcing the individuals in this situation to suffer. And when we have people facing homelessness and criminal charges because of Emirates Airlines' unwillingness to pay its staff, this is a completely unacceptable situation. Who's going to want to work for Etihad, for Emirates Airlines? Who's going to want to work for these national government airlines when they can't even pay their staff, and they leave them in such a precarious position as to have their bank accounts frozen and facing homelessness? This just shouldn't happen. Now, as far as pilots are concerned, they are heavily abused by Emirates Airlines. And we have a lot of people who are suffering. We've got people who are in debt, facing criminal charges in the UAE, and the ones that have left the country or been terminated from their employment, which is the majority of them, are facing debt collectors from UAE banks. So most people do take out a loan in the UAE, but when they're defaulted on by their employer, of course that's going to have a trickle-down effect, and they're not going to be able to pay their loans back or their credit cards that they've taken to live in quite an expensive country that requires 12 months rent up front and that sort of thing. So they've returned to their home countries, they've lost their employment. Of course, we're in a time of economic crisis, and certainly airline staff are not in the best position of all. So they're not going to be able to repay their loans, at least for some time, and they're going to be pursued relentlessly by UAE banks, and they're the ones that have left the country. Then we have this wonderful couple here that I've spoken to, and my heart just reaches out to them because it's so distressing to imagine yourself in that position where you've lived in a country and essentially invested into that country, become a local, become an expat, and become a part of a community, to then have that ripped away through no fault of their own, through Emirates Airlines default. Now, why isn't the Dubai government, the UAE, Abu Dhabi, stepping up to bail out the airline having this trouble, if that is indeed what's causing them to default on staff? Or is it simply a decision of Emirates Airlines that, well, we don't have to pay them, they're not going to be able to do anything about it legally? This couple have already wasted 100,000 dirhams on a lawyer to try and get their end of service leave benefits, and that hasn't done anything. So they've lost money on that front as well. Now, what kind of a situation is this that is allowed to continue by the Dubai government? So anyone with Emirates Airlines stories, please come to us, and anyone who needs help with UAE banks or is facing homelessness or can't leave the country because of this situation, please come to us. We'll try to help you as much as we can, and we're going to be talking about this story in a little more depth over the next couple of days. I'm going to issue a press release about it because it's just, it's so common and so many people are affected by it. And I think a lot of people just aren't even considering that there will be people in these positions. So Emirates Airlines, disgusting.